Plait is a system for home care providers to run their businesses. This course is an introduction to it and is suitable for all students. So the first thing that we're going to cover here is how to get help if you've got a problem with using Plait. You do it by accessing our support site, which is at support.reallycare.org. Reallycare CIC is the name of the company behind Plait. If you enter that, it'll actually redirect to Freshdesk site, because Freshdesk are the people who we use at the moment for hosting our support. And the most important thing on that landing page is this how to ask for help FAQ here. So I would strongly recommend that you read this, and even if you're a very, very busy person, please read it down to here, because this bit here is the bit that saves almost all of the time, yours and ours. And then the very bottom tells you how to actually open a ticket. So no direct emails to anyone at Reallycare if you have a problem. Always use the support@reallycare.org email, because that will reach many people and is much more monitored than any alternative email address. I just want to go through a little bit of sort of basic browser navigation so that you can get the best out of Plait. So Plait uses a lot of sort of standard web navigation stuff, including these links. There are lots of links all over the place, and you'll know that if you left click on a link, it will invariably open the page that the link points to in your current browser tab. Sometimes though it's more useful to open it in a different browser tab, and not everybody knows how to do that. So it's a right click and you get open link in new tab, or indeed open link in new window. So let's open that link in a new tab. And if we go through to an example tab which has got some form to navigate, I just want to make sure that you understand that clicking tab progresses through the fields, and holding down the shift key and clicking tab goes up through the fields, and holding down the control key and clicking tab moves you to the next browser tab, and holding down shift and the control key and clicking tab takes you to the previous browser tab. Your first interaction with Plait itself is going to be the receipt of an email from your admin user, your supervisor, whatever, the business owner, who will have set up an account for you, and you'll get an email like this. So in this example, the admin user is called Joan, demo admin user, and the new user is called Alana, and Alana gets this email which explains how to set up their password and activate the account. And it also suggests that you should change your username to something shorter, although you can do it later, and it explains in the email how to do that. So I'm going to click on this link, and it takes me to a screen like this, where it tells me what my current username is, and asks me to put in my password and to confirm it. And you should note that usernames and passwords are case sensitive, which is a bit unusual. Usernames are generally not case sensitive, so please be aware of that. So the first thing I'm going to do is shorten my username. I don't want to be typing this in every time I try and log into the system anywhere. So my username is going to be Al. I'm going to risk a very short one. If it's duplicated elsewhere, then the system won't allow me to save the record. And I'm going to put in a password, and I absolutely don't recommend that you use a password that you type in yourself. Now there's a number of things that you should do for good password practice. You should never reuse a password. It's very good practice to get a product like OnePass or LastPass to generate random passwords for you. I use this one here called Bitwarden, and it'll generate passwords like that, which you can then copy and put into ice, and then it'll remember them for you. And I would recommend that you do that. I would also recommend that you consider checking that your password has not been compromised, and there's a place that you can do that on the web. And have I been pwned? and you could put in your password there. So I would be very unsurprised if the password that I've just typed in, which was password, had been pwned. Oh no, it's been pwned 9 million times, so that's not a safe password. But if I was to put in the one that had just been generated, let's just generate another one because I'm not sure that I copied it into my buffer, my clipboard. Let's put that in, and I would be astonished if that was not safe. Okay, so best practice, you should do that with your passwords, and you should not reuse your passwords. So I'm now going to submit my my new user with the password and check that I can log in. And yes, I can, and there I am, Alana Smith. So once you logged into the system, this is what you're confronted with. And I'm just going to go through most of the screen elements and explain things about them. So this is the address bar, and it contains the URL. Now this is the general URL, the landing page, and doesn't give you very much information. But if I was to drill down to one of the alerts, it would give me a much more detailed URL that contains an awful lot of information that I can use to pass to someone else. So if I wanted to say to somebody, have a look at Rebecca's calendar for this day, then I can copy this and send it to them in an email. Have a look at Rebecca's calendar for this day, and when they click on it, assuming they're logged in, it will take them straight to where you want them to look. The next thing we're going to look at is this Plait logo here, which, as you saw when I clicked on it, it took me back to the home page. So that's the Plait logo up here. The next thing to look at is the search input. So it's a global search. It searches everything in the system. I'll go into it in more detail later, but if you want a client or a care worker or an organisation or a report, you would just type the name of it in there, or part of the name in it there. And you get there by clicking Ctrl+/. Now actually, if you're not in an input field, / will work on its own. Ctrl/ will work from everywhere, but on some browsers Ctrl/ actually causes an orange flash. So I've found that Ctrl+Shift+/ works without the ugly flash, if that bothers you. So the next thing that we're going to look at is this new button here, which allows you to create new records of the type that you select. And the next menu option is the plan, which, as you can see, has got a little down arrow beside it, which is separate from the button, unlike on the new where it's all the same. On the plan, the down arrow is separate from the main menu option. So the reason for that is that the down arrow gives you the chance of seeing the plan for a specific day, whereas plan takes you straight to the plan for today. Scrolling from day to day on the plan is a fairly expensive operation in terms of compute power, so you want to avoid doing that because it just wastes your time. So if I click on plan, it takes me straight to the plan, but if I want to see the plan for one day next week, rather than scrolling forward, which I can do, and we'll come to that later, I bring down the calendar and I click on the day next week that I'm interested in. So there is another menu in addition to the new and plan menus, but that only appears when it's relevant to the data that you're displaying on the screen. So let's bring up a record. We'll bring up a client, Catherine Earnshaw. I'll see that as the form gets populated, this client context menu appears. So the name of the context menu is always the type of data that you're looking at, and the client one is one of the larger ones, all of the options here relate to this specific client. Okay, so if you want to run a report on all of the clients, you do that in a different way by bringing up a report through the search, through the global search, these things will just act upon or give you information about this specific client. Now, the next thing that we're going to look at is this user menu up here, and the reason that the layout of the screen has slightly changed is that I want to show you that this and many other things about the system vary in appearance depending on the size of the window that you're looking through. So here you can see more information than we could see when the browser window was just a shade narrower. So it did just say Alana Smith, now it says user Alana Smith, and there's this bit of information here, Demo Care, which is the organisation that she was assigned to by the administrator who set up her account. But in fact, Demo Care comprises two areas, as you can see here, northern area and southern area, and she might just want to work in southern area, so that context switching is one of the first things, is the first option in the user menu. So let's switch to context and see what happens. I'll switch to southern area, and we get to only see the work for southern area, and this description up here changes. The next one is calendar, so this will let you see your calendar, which if you're exclusively an office user will contain, I don't know, supervisions or something like that, but if you also work as a care worker, it will contain your care work as well, if you've been set up so that one person record on the system is used for both your care work and your office work, which is something that the system allows. You'll have noticed when we first logged in that there were a number of alerts here, and you can configure which of those that you see. So some may be appropriate for your job role and some may not, so you can configure that here. Then you can change your password, which also allows you to change your username if you forgot to do that earlier on and you still got a very long one that you don't like typing in. And finally, you can log out. So we've already used this global search once to bring up an example client, but we're going to go into it in a bit more detail now. So the way it works is it searches for all records of any type that match the characters that you've put in, and displays them underneath, and then you click on the one that you want. On occasion, depending on the data type, it might give you some more information if you hover over it so that you can disambiguate between two people with similar names, for instance. So the less information I put in here, the more I'll get back, and the ordering of the search results is quite complex, but it's designed to be sort of the most helpful and intuitive for you. So people come first, clients come above, care workers come above, come above users, come above contacts. Within those groups, the client, carer, etc., they're sorted by when they were last accessed. So a client who you just used this morning will sort above a client who you last used last week, who will sort above a client who you've not thought about for 4 years or whatever. Now, as you can see, just putting in an E, even on my very small data set, I've got quite a lot of data, and it's kind of, you know, more than I'd want to look at. So let's look at ways of narrowing down the length of the results. So one way that we've seen is by typing in more characters, and in fact on this one I just need to type in a couple of characters and I get the whole thing, get the specific one that I want. Another way of doing it would be to type the data type that I'm interested in, followed by a colon, followed by some part of the search string. So here we've got all the clients who have got part of their name beginning with E. Now let's say that I wanted Earnshaw, but I couldn't remember whether they were called Earnshaw or Bradshaw, so I don't actually remember the first part of their name. So I want to search for all clients that contain Shaw anywhere in their name. I do that by putting in an asterisk before the name. So here I've now got all clients who have anywhere in their name and the name includes their forename, their surname and their preferred name where specified. I could also do any record anywhere in the system that has got Shaw anywhere in it, but it actually results in just the same person coming up. All this, because you're not likely to remember it, is available in an FAQ on the support site. So you go to the support site, which we got to by support@reallycare.org, and then it redirected, as you can see. And in the how can we help you today, just type search, and the first result is searching for data, which is an FAQ that goes through everything I've just gone through. The alerts list contains a list of conditions that the system thinks you should be aware of, and you can configure those, and we'll see how to do that in a while. But each one of them will have at least one link which will take you to the part of the system that is thought to be most appropriate to deal with the condition that you're being alerted about. So this one here has only got the one link, and you can see that all of the text in the rectangle, or on the left hand side of the rectangle, is one colour. So we could visit that link, we could open it in a new window, or we could just click on it and it would take us straight there. The other links that we can see have got two possible destinations. So the other alerts that we can see have got links to two possible destinations. So this one is taking us to the specific log for review that the alert is about, and then along here we've got a more general link which allows us to deal with this case and all of the other cases. And likewise here, if it's an unallocated booking, then it might be more appropriate to look at it in the plan than in the form for that individual booking. So occasionally you might not want to deal with an alert right now, but you might want to delay it until a more appropriate time, and the system has got a few options here. So it looks a little bit like the snoozing capabilities of Gmail, and the options that you get depend on the time of day and the day of the week. You'll always get select date and time, and you'll always get never show me these. So never show me these just gets rid of that type of alert forever, not for this person, but that type of alert. So in this case it's you'll never see a flagged a log for review alert again if you click on never show me these, although you can reset that, and I'll show you how to do that in a little while. And select date and time allows you to be very specific about when you next want to see this. If you don't bother to click on the down arrow and you just click on the snooze button, then it will always go for the first option, which during office hours is going to be later today, 1800. So now we need to deal with what happens when we're just getting the wrong sort of alerts, when our job role is not what the default user is expected to do. So what we do there is we go into our alerts options page, and we can configure things the way we want them to be configured. So first of all, we can say how many alerts that we want to see, and if we're not interested in alerts at all, we can put 0, and our home page is always going to be blank. Don't use a huge number here, because you're never going to be able to work through more than kind of 10 or 20, so please don't put 500, because you'll clog the system up unnecessarily. So I'm going to put 20. I'm going to change that to 20, and then we've got the things that can generate alerts. Some of them are configurable. So in this case, a late event arrival alert can be generated 30 minutes after you would have expected the care worker to arrive at the booking, but some businesses might prefer to be alerted quicker than that, and you can configure that. Some people might think that a late event departure is more of a worry than a late event arrival, because there might be a safety concern with some service users or whatever. So you can sort the order of alerts as well. And then finally, you can suppress alerts, so you'll never get to see, in this case, a late event arrival. And when you've made your selections, you click on save and go back to the home page, and the changes will have been applied. A very important idea that crops up in several areas in Plait is the idea of recurrence. So here I'm putting in a booking, and there's this repeat checkbox here, and when I click on it I see the recurrence control. Now these vary slightly across the system, sometimes you have to specify a start date and whatever, but always they have a frequency that you can specify, and there's a number of options. In this case we've got a daily, weekly, monthly or yearly frequency, and then some other way of specifying stuff which depends on the frequency selected. So if I go for daily frequency, then I just get to say it's daily, and I can say it's every 2 days or every 3 days or whatever. If I say it's weekly, then I can say it's every week on a Tuesday, Thursday and Saturday, for instance. If I say it's monthly, then I can get to say it's a particular day or days of the month, or the last day of the month, or the somethingth day of the somethingth week. And finally, annually, I get to specify what date it occurs every year. The two most important types of components for entering and manipulating data in Plait are the form and the calendar. We'll come to the calendar in a moment, but let's have a look at forms first of all. So we can get a form up by creating a new record. So we'll create a new contact record, and we'll see that we've got these 4 buttons here. That's common with all forms across the system. We've got some tabs here, which is very common. That occurs in the majority of the forms across the system, and we've got fields running down the page in each tab, although none of the fields are exposed there because these are array fields, and you need to add a field to add an object, add a set of fields before you can see what the fields are. So essentially somebody could have, in this case, multiple addresses, multiple phone numbers, multiple emails, etc. I'll just get rid of those. So this form here has got a mandatory field, a required field, surname. So we can't save the record until we've populated that field. So let's have a look at these buttons up here. We've got the cancel button, which is enabled because we've made some modifications to the record, although we actually effectively cancelled them ourselves. But I can click that. All changes have now been cancelled and the button's disabled. The delete button is disabled because it's a new record. There's nothing there to delete. The new button is there but won't actually do anything because I'm already in a new record. And the save button is disabled, partly for the same reason that the cancel button is disabled, so there's been no change to the record yet. So let's make a change to the record, and we'll put in a title, but we'll see that there's still a problem with the save button, and that's disabled now because as I go to click it, some form validation happens and we find that there's no data in the surname field. So we've got a missing field. Can't save the data. Let's look at an existing record, and as I try and change from one record to another with unsaved data, the system will prompt me that I've got unsaved data, and I get an opportunity to save it. So here's another example of a form, a more complex one with many more tabs and a couple of new types of controls. The new button is now enabled because I'm in real data. I can create some more data. Here's one of the new types of fields. It's sort of a rich edit field, and I can type in some text and do sort of basic formatting. So if I select some text and click on this B or do Ctrl B, then it will be emboldened. I can do the Ctrl B with the keyboard there and carry on and type. Ctrl I will give me italicized text, etc., etc. I can put pictures in there, and I can do, not the most complex types of text editing, but a fair amount. So these are fields that get displayed on various reports and on the mobile app that care workers use. So if you want to draw care workers' attention to a particular part of the text, you could use some of those editing features. If there's invalid data which gets validated at the back end, i.e. on the server, so this NHS number gets validated on the back end. When I try and save the record, the system can't tell me that there's a problem because it doesn't understand the validation. When I save the record, it goes to the back end, and then I get an error message back that tells me what the problem is. Now, this is a simplified error message. In fact, there's a more complex sort of definition of what a valid NHS number is, but certainly it needs to be 10 characters long. You'll notice that the error is displayed in this control with two buttons on it. One to pin the error message so that I can read it at my leisure, although it should give me long enough to read it before it automatically disappears, and the other to get rid of it. You'll recall that earlier on in this video we were talking about keyboard shortcuts within the browser, the tab and shift tab, etc., to go forwards and backwards and to switch tabs, and there are keyboard shortcuts available in Form to access those 4 buttons that we've just talked about, and you can see what those are by doing a question mark, and you can see that they are Ctrl Shift S to save the current record, Ctrl Shift Escape to cancel the changes on the current record, Ctrl Shift Insert to create a new record, and Ctrl Shift and X to delete the current record. And that's everything that we need to know about forms for now. You'll notice that one of the tabs on this form is the calendar tab, so this is a good place to segue into calendars. So we've already seen one calendar earlier on in the video, which was the plan. This is the calendar for an individual, namely Kathy Earnshaw, and it shows all of the events that will take place over a week that we know about, and some of the events, as you can see, have got glyphs on them telling us that there's medication, which is the kind of capsule glyph, and tasks, which we're using a cup for. The ones that are coloured in red have gone past and have got some sort of error condition which we've not yet acknowledged. The white ones are in the future and haven't happened yet. Each of the events has got a start time and an end time that we can just about see, and a care worker name and a duty type. Now, the different types of calendar on the system have got different characteristics, but there are some things that are common to all of them. So these next and previous buttons are common to all of them. A way of selecting what time period you're going to view is common, although the actual time periods differ. And I think they all have a today button and a go to date button. So if you go to date, it gives you a control where you can shift forward months, years, days, whatever. They all have a help button, which takes me to a screen which talks about the shortcuts, the keyboard shortcuts that apply to calendars. Now, there's too much there to go through, but the ones that you will want to remember probably are the next and previous, which is N and P. So they skip forward and back one viewport, 1 week in this case. And if I go to next, or I go a couple forward, the T for today will take me so that today is in the current viewport, and you can see today is this one with the sort of vague yellow background colour. The client calendar has got a fairly extensive set of options available to us, and most interesting bit is this mode bit down here. Now both the client and the care worker and the runs calendar have got this historical snapshot option, which allows us to do a sort of point in time display of what the calendar would have looked like to somebody at that time, and you can step forwards and backwards through the audit trail, as it were, to see what changes were made, and you can drill down to bookings, and it's quite extensive. You can also just look at the meds on their own without the tasks and without the bookings, and you can look at just the tasks on their own. This particular client has got more than one contract, so they've got a local authority funded contract and some self-funding, so you could display just one of those if you want. And because they've got two contracts, one of them has to be current, and that's displayed here. So new bookings that are created on the calendar are assigned to that contract. So how do you create a new booking? Quite simply, with the mouse you click at the beginning of the booking and drag to the end of the booking, and a modal dialog comes up. A default visit type or default event type is taken from some part of the configuration. The client and contract, we've just seen how that comes along, and then you need to select a care worker, and we'll go into that in more detail in another video. So let's have a look and see how the plan is different. So the plan is different in that you get one row per care worker, and you can see everything that's going to happen for a day or for 3 days, although actually you'd have to extend your window size to do that. You'd need quite an expensive monitor to see very much data through the plan. What else have we got? We've got care worker calendars, so let's have a look at Will Kane's calendar. And the care worker calendar has got their availability as a sort of a light green background. A shortcut to show just the availability, and that's A. And so if somebody's availability changes, so if Will was available exceptionally late night tomorrow night, I can extend his availability like that, and then go back to displaying both the bookings and the availability by clicking B, and you can see that his availability has been updated. So that's a very brief introduction to calendars. You'll learn more as we progress.